Henrietta Lacks was a black woman back in the 50s who had children, everything, but she kept having female issues. And she ends up with ovarian and uterine cancer. Now, because of Henrietta Lacks, bioethics came into play, the ethical things you do with people's remains, their blood, all of those things. So when you go to get blood work and things and you sign all those forms and you're giving permission that they own your blood, a lot of that is because of Henrietta Lacks. And her cells, she's called Henrietta Lacks the Immortal. Because they had been looking for cells at Johns Hopkins. They had been looking for cells that would constantly reproduce so they could do certain research for polio, for all of the different diseases. But when cells died off, so did their experiment, their medical experiment to intervene in those type of diseases. Henrietta, however, comes to the hospital and she's going during a time when African descended people had their own little section, things like that, and were not treated very well. And I don't think she was either. And she really suffered. This woman suffered greatly. And one of the nurses, one of the Caucasian nurses, when they were in there taking her blood and doing things, she had finally died. She didn't even recognize her as a human being, and she admitted that this was a specimen until she looked down and she saw her toenails. And because she had been hospitalized for so long, the nail polish was cracked and she realized this was a woman. So all of the research, they took her cells because Henrietta Lacks' cells kept right on producing and producing and reproducing and reproducing and reproducing. And guess what? They finally got cells that they could do research work on. Her cells are around the world. Anyone doing research around the world, Henrietta Lacks' cells are involved. That's why she's called Henrietta Lacks the Immortal. Her cells have never died. They remain in this realm, working. I'm sure when they did all the COVID testing and all of that research, guess whose cells they had to use because they keep on reproducing. Henrietta Lacks, a black woman who lost her life, left her small children. Her family never benefited from what they took from her. They never even raised the question, do we have permission to take this from her? And we all know as African descended women that many times things are taken from us. Don't ask. You think you have the right to do it. And Johns Hopkins thought they had the right to take her cells, which they did, and use it for research. But to their surprise, they kept going. Immortal cells. Divine cells that kept going, and her family was grieved and vexed. Her daughter ended up, after someone wrote a book, ended up dying of having a stroke because she wondered the spiritual ramifications of them utilizing her mother's cells over and over. Every hospital probably has a drop of Henrietta Lacks' blood or cells in that hospital. And she kept thinking, is my mother still suffering? Is it holding her spiritually captive or as a hostage? So anytime you go and you take your baby to get their vaccinations, Henrietta Lacks is there. She is a woman to be honored, even though what was taken from her has benefited the whole world. We'll never know if they had maybe asked her, can we have your cells? But because she was an African American woman, they just took what they wanted from her physical body after she died. But yet the blessing of who she is, irregardless, around the world, again, no research is done without her blood. But then that's why we get the bioethics that they have to raise questions. For example, when I had my gallbladder removed, I said, I want my gallbladder. They say, you can't do that. It's coming out of my body. Why can I not have it? Well, we'll have to take it to the lab and all that. And my doctor was he was a wonderful gentleman. He took a picture of it. But think about that. They take something out of your body, you can't have it. Because after all, before you do all the surgery and those things, all that little fine print that you don't read, they keep it ethical by having you give it all away. No matter what they're going to use it for, you give it all away, whether it's your blood, your heart, your liver, your gallbladder. But the only one that remains that I know of right now, Henrietta Lacks, is the leading cell and blood source that they use for research. If you don't know about Henrietta Lacks, I don't care what ethnicity you are, but as a woman, go read up on Henrietta Lacks, the immortal. I salute you, Henrietta, my ancestor. I salute Henrietta Lacks, Ashe, Ashe, Asheo, a powerful woman. And what made her so powerful is what was within, not the outside. What was within made her one of the most powerful women in the world. Hands down, I don't care what name you mention. They may be dead and gone, but their cells are too. Their blood is too. Henrietta Lacks keeps on giving and living in this realm through research, through medical breakthroughs. Take your COVID vaccine, thank Henrietta Lacks. Take a polio vaccine, thank Henrietta Lacks. Meningitis, you name it. Henrietta Lacks. Lifting another woman for Women's History Month. Bye, guys.